Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning if you're in Europe. I'm very pleased to introduce this Privacy Espresso with Ivan Ivanov, who is founder of UVECON, venture capital investors in Hong Kong, and also the co-organizer of the Digital Week Online. As Privacy Rules, we are very pleased to co-host the Privacy and Cybersecurity session of the Digital Week Online on the 11th of March at 12:30 p.m. GMT time. Please follow Privacy Rules and Digital Week Online platforms in order to receive information on how to register. That session will be moderated by Kevin Warburton, partner at Tanner De Witt, a leading law firm for technology and data privacy in Hong Kong, who will be also, of course, a guest in this Privacy Espresso. I don't want to take much of your time because we have now less than 10 minutes. So I give the floor immediately to Ivan to introduce the topic of today.
Yeah, so hello, everybody. Thanks, Andrea, for inviting us. And the topic is, so we want to touch right now, is the importance of considering privacy and privacy compliance for startups and VC investors in these startups. Because what we are doing in UVECON, we are helping startups to grow internationally, especially in Hong Kong and Southeast Asia. And so what we see is that very often startups, they even don't think about like compliance with privacy regulations of Hong Kong or other countries. And the fines for breaking these regulations can really kill startups. And VC investors should also consider this if they're making their like DD for startups. So, and what I want to ask Kevin right now to share his experience on this side, whether there were like cases when the government like makes some fines to startups for breaking the regulations.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very hot topic, Ivan, and you know, before we get to specific cases, because I think a lot of that is will be country specific. I think just thinking about the factors that lead us down, lead us into the problem in the first place. As you said earlier, a lot of startups don't necessarily think about privacy compliance. It's all about the idea at the time and getting that off the ground. So I think just thinking of three things that the startups really need to think about at the beginning. Just sit back and step back and say, okay, what industry are we trying to work in here? Where are we? And that might help identify some specific requirements that we need from a privacy compliance point of view. So, for example, are we operating in a fintech space or elsewhere in the banking sector, in healthcare? Will we be contracting with government entities? We also need to think about, well, where do we want the startup to be based? Where are our customers going to be? And that's going to help us look at which privacy regulations actually bite on us. So, it might all be it might be easy to say, okay, well, my startup is here in Hong Kong, so I need to look at the Hong Kong regime. But actually look at, what sort of customers am I interacting with? Am I looking at people in the EU as well? And, we're only 3 minutes in, so I'll get the first reference to the GDPR. But, so that's there are other issues that we need to think about. And then looking as well, what are our data collection practices going to be? How are we working? Are we customer facing? Are we dealing with businesses? And so looking at our apps and our websites, how do they operate? And that will inform what we need to do. And then looking on the flip side of that, those are questions that the VC investors should ask as well, because that will help them tailor their due diligence requests as well, so that they're informing, they're investing with a bit more information. And then in terms of where that goes in terms of the risk, as you said, some of the fines, might not be can be huge if you look at the GDPR, huge as a percentage of turnover. But then looking, say here in Hong Kong, where we don't really see that much enforcement by way of fines, because the sanctions regime here is still it's developing and is under review, but isn't doesn't reflect something like the GDPR. But really the problem is you're going to have a reputational problem. Just arising from the fact that you've had an incident or you haven't complied. Word gets out if there's an investigation. So I think that's one of the bigger pressure points, and which can have as much impact as fines.
Interesting, and in particular in Hong Kong, for example, because Hong Kong law, as far as I know, so the fines could be like even like imprisonment for 1 year or something for breaking like privacy regulations, or like quite big fines, right?
Yeah, I mean the fines aren't so much in Hong Kong for breaches of at the moment for breaches of the privacy law, more for they're more further down the line for not having complied with the results of an investigation. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. It's not as sophisticated a regime. It's a bit more of it's a little bit outdated, the regime here, but equally the impact isn't so much the level of fine itself, but like you say, the other sanctions that can end up there. I mean, you'd have to go quite a long way down the line to end up in prison, and it wouldn't be for a direct result of the breach of the privacy ordinance here, but frankly, by the time we'd actually got that far, the startup will probably have failed anyway.
Yeah, right.
And Ivan, if I can ask you, your interaction with investors, and so your message to the investors specifically, what would it be, and which is let's say 3 practical tips that you would give to them in order to consider also cybersecurity and not only data privacy compliance?
Yes, right. So if you're talking about VC investors, so normally, like if we are talking about VC funds or like institutional investors, of course they know all these like sensitive points where to look at. But if we are talking about like angel investor or small family offices and funds, so then that is a question that they need to ask founders. So, and that is a question that they need to check with professional lawyers,
which of course are gathered in the Privacy Rules Alliance, if I can say that. And actually I can report the live case that we had the day before yesterday from your region, not exactly from Hong Kong, but there is a startup that will operate, of course, with apps and therefore collect information from all over the world. And one of the issues that we are trying to solve for them is related to the data centers, and so where the data will be stored and how even to store data in the cloud, which is by definition not specifically geographically related. So there are a lot of complicated issues that need to be addressed by specialized lawyers, as we have in private rules, but also by cybersecurity experts that can speak with the legal world in a way that solutions are provided in a very holistic approach. So this is in fact what we do. Kevin, would you have a last, in literally just 1 minute, a last tip that you would like to give to startuppers or investors?
Yeah, I will. Well, just before I do that, I just see that we've actually had a question. Which is, do Hong Kong regulations require companies to have a data protection officer? At the moment, no. But the regime is under review at the moment, and a lot of what we see in Hong Kong is recommended adopt best practice that you see elsewhere, and that would be have a DPO if you have one. You would need one anyway potentially if you're subject to the GDPR. So rather than give a tip, I'll answer the question.
Ivan, is there any point that you would like to address in literally 30 seconds?
Yeah, to like startup founders, always think about privacy compliance and data protection of your users. And to VC investors, always check this point when you are doing like your DD for startups.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We will elaborate these, as I said, longer and broader on the 11th of March at 12:30 p.m. GMT in the context of the Digital Week Online. I thank in advance also Kevin for being moderator of that session. We will have cybersecurity experts and others, so it will be very interesting. Thank you very much to both of you, and see you very soon.